So the insurance agent could stand up in front of people and say, last year, we had a lot of floods in our area. And there were a lot of people who had valuable things, precious things, that were lost. We were there to make sure that we could help them recapture some of those things. And even if they couldn't get them back, at least we could provide them with the payment and some access to trying to find and replace the things that were lost. We protect that which is valuable to you. I worked with an attorney several years ago on creating a brochure. And as an attorney, what is an attorney doing for you? They're protecting your rights. They're looking at the contracts that you sign. They're looking at the houses that you buy. They're looking at all of those things. So thinking about changing your perspective, think about how will you tell someone? How will you paint the picture for them so that they will better understand what it is that you're trying to tell them? I also produce a women's program. So when I think about and put together the information that I want to convey to people, I have to put it together in a way so that as I give them the presentation, I am painting a picture for them. Women today are the most powerful economic force in this country. They are starting businesses 4 times faster than the national average. And yet, women often don't have the self-esteem that they need to take them to the next level. Because We Are Women is a program that will give them the self-esteem, that will focus on who they are, and will teach them how to be self-serving and self-centered in a very positive way. I've painted a picture about women, powerful women, who need help to go to the next level, and that's what you're trying to do. Paint the picture. Think about the things. How can you create this visual for someone without actually having a visual behind them? Now, speaking of visual aids, it's a great, PowerPoint is a wonderful tool. You can do many, many things with PowerPoint. And one of the things that most people do is overuse it. I heard another speaker one time who was coaching someone putting a presentation together, said that he sat down with a fellow and he said, I have about 125 slides in my PowerPoint. And he said, how long is your presentation? About 4 days? No, it's about 2.5 hours. How do you think you're going to get through 125 slides in 2 hours? Visual aids in a presentation are there strictly to help you. They are to help reinforce what you're saying. Sometimes they are there to help guide you through the presentation. But they are not there to present the presentation. And I have seen PowerPoint slides where there are so many words on the PowerPoint slide that the people in the audience are looking up at the slide and reading it while the person is trying to talk. If you were giving the presentation, you want the audience to focus on you, what you're saying, and the information that you're giving them. You can reinforce that presentation with cartoons, with photographs, with graphs, with things that will visually impact them without taking their focus away from you, the presenter, because it's you and what you're saying that's most important. So when you think about in your presentation and you think about in your thesis the things that you want to support visually with what you're saying, make sure that they are pertinent and they are limited and that they create impact, and that you won't have the audience focusing on the PowerPoint and the slides instead of focusing on the things that you're trying to tell them. Okay? Make them limited. Make sure that there's just a few of them. I was at a National Speakers Association conference a few years ago, and there was a very, very high-powered speaker who said she used nothing but cartoons in her presentations. And when she was trying to make a point, then she would simply put the cartoon up on the screen because the cartoon was more visual than just the words. And if you notice, some of the cartoons that are in the packets that you have and the information that you look at, it's to create a visual impact so that in your mind, when you think about painting the picture, you will think of the artist. When you think about really making a first impression, you will think about the person that has that image in the cartoon, and that's what will stay in your mind. That's the image that you will have. One of the very, very important things in a presentation is to always have the question and answer portion of the presentation before you do the closing. Most people will close on a statement, and then they will say, it's time for questions and answers. What happens if the question that somebody asks you is a very negative question, and now you have to respond to that negative question? You've lost control of the presentation because now it's on their question and not yours. What you do all the time is say, before I close, are there any questions? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? And you let the people ask the questions, and you answer the questions, and then, just as you came up with that dynamic opening to really get their attention, you want to make sure that the last thing you say is what you want them to know. We've talked about how to create a presentation. We've talked about the power of a first impression. We've talked about 4 C's. We've done some exercises to help illustrate and reinforce how these things can help you in your communication. And as we leave, I can only tell you, be the best communicator that you can, because everything in the world will then be yours. I'm not going to let you ask a question after I say that, because what if you say to me, well, I'm not so sure that I can do that, and I don't know that I like what you wrote in there. Now I have to respond to that, and I have left this presentation on your note. I had breakfast one time with a fellow from a large accounting firm, and he was just about to make a presentation, and I offered him this advice, and he said to me, it's the best advice anybody ever gave me, and has used it, and has never closed a presentation with questions and answers. Now, the last part of this is how you present. What do you do when you stand in front of people? There are many people who say it's all in the presentation and nobody cares what you're saying. Well, if they really didn't care what you were saying, there would be no reason for you to stand there. The thing that you truly have to remember, and I want you to remember, is to make sure that nothing comes between you and your audience's ability to get your message. Nothing comes between you and your audience's ability to get your message. You defined that message at the beginning. You defined who the audience is. And now you want to make sure that there's nothing that you're going to do that will distract them. Of the things that can distract them are what you have on. If your earrings are dangling, if you're a female, or you have big clunky bracelets that are making noise. If you have a very powerful and colorful tie as a man, something that people are going to look at, they're going to focus on. You don't want them to do that. Or if you're somebody who stands and twirls your hair because you're so nervous, and you're doing things that all of a sudden becomes a distraction to the audience, and they begin to focus on what you're doing instead of what you're saying. When you stand on a platform, you want to make sure your gestures aren't all over the place. You want to make sure that you don't turn your back on people. If you have PowerPoint or you have visual aids that you want people to see, you make sure that you stand to the side, that you don't stand in front of them. You have a computer where you can see it so you can look down at the information instead of having to turn around and look back. Pause. People are afraid to take a pause. I was at a conference several years ago in which Katie Couric was the speaker. And she had a speech in front of her that she read. And I remember at one point going and took my own breath because she was talking so fast that I couldn't keep up with her anymore. We don't talk that way in our normal lives. And giving a speech or a presentation isn't about something that you're going to read so fast that people don't hear you and they can't comprehend what you're saying. You need to pause. Take a breath.